Ways that we do that is that we do look at discipline records across the board for regular ed and special education kids. And I could look up a number, for example, the Jackson Public Schools altogether.
Object if he's referring to documents that are not in evidence. I'm not looking at this file, and I don't think that.
Sure. Okay.
I think well, restate your question.
Okay.
You said you were not here.
My question was, you're not here to testify that the JPS is not providing appropriate services for 3,000 plus students.
No.
Because you haven't reviewed those files.
That's correct.
That's right. You reviewed primarily 9 plus another few that you have come to a conclusion that these systemic problems exist across the board. Is that basically it?
Well, I wasn't allowed to say, but I think we have other data.
But it's not here in front of us today.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, we have another question.
Any recalls? Redirect?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Swindle, you were hired to advise JPS in getting into compliance with the systemic complaint filed on September 8th, 2010, correct?
Yes.
And your file reviews, when you have gone to JPS, have they been based on seeing if compliance has been reached for that complaint?
Yes.
And in your opinion, did JPS reach compliance by November 22nd, 2011?
No.
That's been asked and answered.
Thank you. I'm done.
Good.
Any questions by the commission members of Dr. Swindle? Ladies go first.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess I got several, and I'm not sure where to start. Early on in your testimony, you said that when you were asked about your contract and your services to Jackson Public Schools, and you said that you were not sure that you ever did have an understanding of Jackson Public Schools. And I'm, trying to look at this total picture, and I'm wondering if you feel like that you never did have a complete understanding of what you were supposed to do with Jackson Public Schools. How is it that you came to the conclusions that you did in reference to the reports that you made about Jackson Public Schools? And if you didn't have the same protocols, then what data did you collect to come to the conclusions that you did?
That's pretty lengthy. I'll try to follow that.
Did I confuse you, or
maybe not?
Am I confused?
Maybe not. Let's see. Okay. I hope neither one of us are off my part. I think your first question was in relation to, and you might have to restate that, something about did we have an understanding about what we were doing, something of that nature.
Yes. I think you were asked if you at Jackson Public Schools had an understanding or a contract or about the collaboration, and that your answer was, and I quote, "You're not sure that you ever did."
Well, that's a very good thing, because what actually went on, and in most cases what happens is that we do come into an agreement of what we call an improvement plan or a correction action plan. And what's happened to me in this case is that after one of our last reviews, we wrote a correction action plan. It is not part of this testimony. But then the Jackson Public Schools, after that, I can't remember the date, September the 9th or 6th, when they had their review before the 26th of September, when we had our response. It's one you refer to as that September 6th. Shall we be clear on that? But she asked me earlier Jackson Public Schools, after we initially wrote a correction action plan before December the 6th, and then the public schools responded with their revision of that improvement plan, if you will. And then on September 26th, we responded again with what we recommended for the correction action plan. And the difference between those two plans was basically the Jackson Public Schools plan did account for many types of training. And what we feel like is that we have to have some type of way to document the implementation after training has occurred. So I say that in the sense that you're referring to, were we ever clear on the mission? And other than reviewing the records to determine compliance, the next step is to move forward with how are we going to correct these things. And it was when we offered our September 26th response for improvement plan, we never heard anything back. So we weren't called again except to do another file review, not to provide technical assistance.
Oh, I see. So between the initial time you were contracted or with the State Department to do technical assistance, which was in sometime after the 10th of after September of 10, right? The first time that there was an improvement plan, I heard that it was, I think I remember it was sometime in April. And then it was September before you got a revised plan together. Right?
Well, what I'm saying is that we did provide technical assistance in the form of going into the district in December, in 2010 and doing a file review.
Okay.
And then we did go back once we settled on the type of evaluation instrument we were using, which we were calling protocols. So we did that. And then after we did that, we wrote a correction action plan,
right,
of which JPS responded, and then we responded again.
So this correction action plan was in April, and that's what I wrote. It was in April, and then they responded in September, right? That's
and I can't remember. We went in April, or I think it was May actually, and did that last review. I'll have to go back and look.
I'm talking about 11 now.
Right.
There was a corrective action plan put forth in April.
Well, I'm not sure about
11.
April, but thereabouts. It could have been. I think it was shortly after that.
Yeah, after you did the review, April 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there was a corrective action plan.
That's right.
Sent to Jackson Public Schools. And they responded with revisions in September, right?
Well, actually, we did that review on May the 25th to the 27th.
Okay.
And then we wrote. I would have to look up the date of the actual when our response was the plan that we wrote, and then we did not hear back from Jackson Public Schools till on the 9th of September when they responded.
Okay. During that time, was any other technical assistance being afforded Jackson Public Schools?
We didn't provide any.
Do you know if there were any?
No, ma'am.
You don't know, or there was?
I don't. I can't speak for the State Department. I just know that we weren't.
Okay. And do you know why that you were told after you all agreed on the protocol, then you were told not to use those protocols?
I don't know the reason for that.
Was there a change in the leadership of the Special Education Department in Jackson Public Schools during the time of protocol? First protocols were accepted, and then November.
There was a change. Dr. Sanders was there, and she did leave, and I'm not sure about that time frame.
Okay.
Wait, somebody.
Did you ever meet with the new person who was in charge to talk about the protocols?
I think my partner did have some, I really can't speak, I'm not sure, I did not, but I think he had some communication with the new director.
I think I'm done for now.
Okay, good. I just have a couple of questions, Dr. Swindle. So you originally were contracted back in 2011, spring of 2011, right, to kind of do the assessment, and then eventually brought in to do technical assistance. You've had kind of two roles, correct?
That would be my perception. The MDE might say they were all linked, which could easily be linked.
Okay. In this assistance process that you had, I see here this letter C-29, this email from Dale Bailey, just raising kind of concerns, I guess is the best way to describe it, dated March 28, 2012, so that wasn't too long ago. But through this whole process, if you didn't feel you were getting something back, who did you report this to? I mean, was that part of your contract to get back to the State Department and say, hey, we're trying to offer assistance, but we're not really getting the feedback we think we ought to be getting? Has that been part of this process that you?
I think some of these emails, like the ones you referred to, yes. I mean, we were definitely not sure of what the problem was and why we weren't.
But when did you start this whole thing? When did you start offering assistance?
Well, I mean, we began attempting to offer assistance, really, I guess it depends on your definition of that, but 11/22/10,
Out in round numbers, and I know you won't get the number right, what's kind of the value of the contract so far, approximately, in dollars?
I think it's around 50,000.
50,000. And just one last question. Obviously, based on your response to the attorney here, you've had some connection over time with the Southern Poverty Law Center?
Well, from the standpoint of when there is a lawsuit and a negotiated settlement, that the two parties have to come to terms and agree for somebody to come in. And when you're talking about positive behavior support work, there's not a whole lot of people in Mississippi doing that sort of thing. And so, there's not a lot of folks to do it.
It's amazing how small the South really is.
That's right. And there are some other experts that we work with. You mentioned money; they're quite more expensive.
And during this time, from 2010 on, have you, or to your knowledge, any of your associates had any formal discussion of this with the Southern Poverty Law Center, of this particular issue, the Jackson Public School issue?
I mean, not to my knowledge.
Okay. That's one of the questions I have. Thank you.
I've got a couple. Were any of these students, the 9 petitioners, or any others that you reviewed their file, any of them interviewed?
We did want to do interviews, but as part of the protocol review, but we were not allowed to do that. We just were allowed to look at records.
Okay, what about teachers or counselors?
No, we also wanted to do that as part of the file review, but that was some of the objections about the protocols, and we took that out, so we did not do that.
In your review of the files, when you mentioned you looked at office referrals, did you notice an increase or decrease over the times that you reviewed files in any of that? Behavioral problems or office referrals?
Yes. I mean, I can't speak to that specifically, but I mean, that is one of the things we use as a measure of when you have related service, and are we implementing the programs as we're supposed to? If you look at office referrals to determine should this kid be looked at again, should he have an IEP meeting, and determine what we're doing is working.
Sure. What I'm asking is, do you remember whether there was an increase or a decrease
Well,
over the time? Right.
no, so I would be speculating those terms.
That's it.
Any other questions? Either of the attorneys have questions for Dr. Swindle? Follow-up. Okay.
I just had one quick follow-up, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Dr. Swindle, had JPS invited Fluency Plus in for technical assistance? Would that assistance have been provided?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Okay.
Dr. Swindle, you mentioned that you had never been called back at a certain point. Was that never been called back by MDE? Is that what you were referring to?
Yes.
That's because that's who your boss is, right?
Well, I guess I need to speak about that a little bit. We have done a couple of other things. And in particular, I went in and did observe Anthony at one point.
Just be sure you don't talk about names, anybody's name.
Strike that.
I'm sorry. I did go in and do an observation of one of the petitioners.
Right.
So I was called for that, and I was also called to do an evaluation of their behavior intervention plan, which I did.
Right. Okay. I want to make sure that we understood you to say that none of that had ever happened. Now, one other point to that question is a document C-29 that's dated March 28, 2012. Can you point to me in the exhibits where there's another document like that that complains about lack of cooperation?
I cannot.
Okay. No more questions.
Anything further from Dr. Swindle? Okay, I believe you are free to sit down.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy? Yes,
You want to talk to you as an attorney, we need to talk about what you're talking about.
yeah, hang on, can you just one more second? We have some things we need to talk about on the record, I think. Once you go in, we may have to continue this. For attorneys, do y'all want to go off the record and talk about it and we'll come back? Okay, go ahead. Let's take a break. We're going to go off the record for a minute.